Line podcast. We've got a special guest this evening. It's Alex, and it's Meachum, right? Am I saying that right?
That's right.
Alex
you got
Meachum. He is a former Bearcat. We're going to talk Cincinnati Bearcats basketball this evening. Just get into it with him. He's been with the program basically his whole life, so I think offers a unique perspective as a former player, as a person that's connected to the program, and who still kind of represents them, talking about them on podcasts and various media platforms. So welcome to the program, Alex.
What's up, Aaron, man? I'm so excited to be here, man. I'm talking Bearcats, all that. I just really love talking that stuff. Man, I'm excited.
Cincinnati in general, a lot to be excited about right now. You got football, basketball. The Bengals have won 2 games. So that's on the city on the rise.
Yeah, have you heard about the Cincinnati Curse? Have
no,
you ever heard this before?
I have not.
You ever heard this?
Probably not.
Probably a lot of people outside of Ohio or Cincinnati have never heard this. But so the Bengals back in the day. I forget what year it was, but we're playing it, and I can't even remember who it is, but they tackled Bo Jackson.
Oh, yeah.
And ended his career.
Yeah, broke his hip, right?
Yes. And after that, no one in Cincinnati did well.
Oh my
It was
gosh.
like that. Everyone kind of associates that injury
I didn't know that.
to the Cincinnati
Wow.
Curse. Yeah, it's a big thing here. And so everyone always is like, Cincinnati teams find a way to lose, or something crazy happens. Like, my teammate Kenyon Martin, it was the year we were supposed to win a championship, breaks his leg, right? The one year the Bengals, Jeremy Hill fumbles it and loses the game, and the Bearcats and Xavier, it's just like over and over and over. So to see things where they are now with the Bearcat football team making the, Final Four of football was amazing. And the Bengals obviously, doing well. And I'm not a Bengals fan. My dad's a huge Bengals fan, but it's just great. It's just great.
Wait,
for the city.
what are you?
You ready for this?
No. Yeah,
I'm a LA Rams fan.
Rams.
And they won today. Check this out, Aaron. The Bengals, the 49ers, and the Rams all won their games the exact same way. Walk-off field goals.
That is crazy.
What?
I know.
Like if I have a young son right now, he's practicing field goals. Like, get outside and go practice field goals.
Yeah, no doubt about it. That's the way to get into the game. Don't have to get hit either. As basketball players, that's an easy thing for to think about. I didn't want to get hit. That's why I didn't play football.
Oh, no question. Are you a Colts
No,
fan?
I'm not. I've got my Bengals cup here. I actually grew up a little bit in Covington. Covington, Kentucky. So
you really?
Yeah. So right across the river.
Right over the river.
So
Nice.
Reds and Bengals fan, and IU.
Big Reds fan here.
Yeah. So let's circle back to basketball and give us just your origin story. We like to ask just kind of how people got into basketball. Like what got your hooks into basketball?
So my older brother, Tony, he's 7 years older than me. I used to idolize everything he did. I did. He started playing tennis. I played tennis. And it was just one of those things, like, whatever he was listening to, Run DMC, I started listening to Run DMC. That was the first record I ever had. So, but what I noticed was he had a passion for basketball. And I was like, you know what? I really love this sport as well. It wasn't just because my brother was playing. I really enjoyed playing basketball. It was just something about it. And so my mother and father built a court in the backyard, and I would go out there and practice every day. And I tell you, and I try to pass this along to a lot of parents, and that is, it's always great to let your kids dream big dreams, visualize success, and just whatever grandiose thing it is, let them live in that world. And I would go in the backyard, and I swear, I would act like at 9 years old, I was playing for the Cincinnati Bearcats, and I was hitting the game-winning shot. And I would come in and tell my parents, I just hit the game-winning shot for the Bearcats. And they would go, oh, great, that's awesome. And that was my dream. So by just practicing and shooting around a lot, I just found a passion for the game. And no other sport really clicked with me. I was terrible at baseball. Soccer was the most boring thing for me as a kid. I just, my attention span wasn't good for soccer, and football, I was just too soft Like,
Yeah,
you
get hit a
know, I
couple
just didn't
times.
want to get hit. And it's too cold
Yeah.
outside. And basketball was the perfect thing for me. And then I tell you what else, Aaron, happened. I had a coach named Willie C. Jackson, and I played on a team here in Cincinnati, right off Reading Road. It was called Bond Pad. And this coach just gave me a tremendous amount of
Mm.
confidence. You know, he said to me one day, I'll never forget this, kind of pulled me aside, and he goes, "You know why I yell at you a lot? Because I think you have a lot of
Mm.
potential." And I'm gonna tell you what, that really changed, I think, you know, my trajectory in basketball. Like I just was like, you know what? If Coach Jackson says he's coached a lot of really good players, if he thinks I have potential, then he's right. And I'm not going to let him down. So that's how I fell in love with the game, between my brother, the backyard hoop, and Coach Willie C. Jackson. It was on from there.
Okay, I got to ask you about the backyard hoop because that one hit for me. I was watching some of the YouTube videos you've got up on. I think it's One Shining Media. Is that the YouTube channel?
Yeah, Shine One Media. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So I've got
Yep.
you're talking about your backyard hoop and the uniqueness of it. Even like
Oh,
the defenders, the walls, the defender. I kind of wanted to get your perspective because you're working with young people still. Like, do you think that there is something? There's so much access. I feel like to gyms now. There's like a uniqueness to my game. There's still like a spot on the floor that I shoot from, and I'm almost always more accurate from there just because the way my driveway was shaped. I shot from there more because otherwise I had to contend with like the tree and some other elements.
so okay, I got a story with
Okay.
that. You're 100% correct. And so I have an AAU basketball program, Shining Star Sports, and I have over 30 AAU teams and have kids from all over the greater Cincinnati area. And when we first started our program, probably in year two, I was actually coaching. I don't coach anymore. I just kind of oversee everything, but I was coaching. And we had a very average team, but a lot of great kids. I really enjoyed coaching these kids. And well, actually, only one kid was a starter on his high school team. And so we had a kid on our team, and he was probably like the eighth guy off the bench at his high school. And so we're at this tournament, and I run this play, and I decide to put him in the corner. And I said, "Hey, if you're open in the corner and they don't guard you, shoot it." So we run the play, and he makes the corner shot. And I was like, "Okay, cool." Second half, we run it again. He makes it again. I was like, okay. The next day, we do the same thing. And I tell you, he would not miss from the corner.
Steph Curry, huh?
So it became a
Yeah,
running joke, like the corner spot. So we're probably four tournaments deep, and it's just, I mean, we just laugh at that. He's just going to hit this corner shot. It's
yeah,
money. And when the fourth tournament's over, and I have to drive, all the kids home because, some of them just don't have rides.
yeah.
And this kid in particular wasn't from a great situation, but so I have to take him to his house, and I have like three kids in the car with me. So we're driving to his house, and we pull up to his house, and we all go, "Holy moly. This is why he makes it." So he has a driveway that's super thin,
Yeah,
like, right? It's like that. No, there's no car in the
right.
garage. Okay. And the basketball hoop is pointed this way. So he can
That's
only
it.
take
Just
baseline
corner
jumpers.
threes.
And we all pull up, and we're like,
This is
"This
it.
is why." And we're like, "Why didn't you tell us this the whole time?" And he's just like, man. So
He
that's
go
back
he
to
go to the
your,
league. He go to the league with that now,
bro. Bro, I mean, the Grizzlies
yeah,
should take
right.
him and put him in a corner and just let him shoot. But I think the kids today, so they have so much access to
Hmm.
gyms and perfect environments now to be successful, and that's good. Whereas I feel like when I grew up, we didn't have access to facilities like they do now. We were in the streets playing, and we were in the backyard, and you had to navigate through conditions. Like, you go play in the streets, you're gonna have to dribble around puddles, potholes. The rims are double rim. They've got, you remember this back in the day, there were, chain
Yeah.
nets, and sometimes the nets were super, super thick. And you had to really adjust your game. And I think, the biggest thing I tell people, you have to, battle through different adversity. Um, and I think that really helped me out. But some of these kids, I tell them, I say, you got it good, man. You're in a good gym with a floor that's like,
Yeah.
not dusty
Yeah.
or
Someone mopped
so.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm like, man, you saw the YouTube video, man. That floor, or the ground in
I was dying.
my backyard back
Yeah.
then. You would like if you would cross over, like you and the dude are falling
Yeah.
over, like both you. It's so slippery.
Yeah, my
So
driveway went to gravel kind of towards the bottom, so you had to try to get there before you hit the gravel if you're getting your shot because you're 1 foot like slide out in the gravel. Yeah.
Oh, that's
Pretty
too good.
great.
That's
Yeah,
too good.
tell me a little more about playground basketball because that was the other thing I wanted to ask you. We love hearing playground stories, and
Oh,
there was one the place you played. I was dying. Even the name of it, I was like, oh my gosh,
Sugar and Spice.
Yes. I was like, I gotta
Bro,
get him talking about this.
legendary.
What? How did you
Legendary.
find this place? Like, how old were you when you started playing there? What was it like?
Yeah, so in the 80s, like if you grew up in the 80s and 90s in Cincinnati, like Sugar and Spice courts were one of the top places you can go and play. And it sat like in this valley. And right next to it is this, there's a golf course, but you can't see the golf course. But so the neighborhood I grew up in, we used to like run through the golf course, run down the hill to the court. All the top players, in the city would come to the court. And so the restaurant next to it is called Sugar and Spice. That's how it got its name. But the
So
funny part
when I
about
heard
it
that, I'm
is
like, man, I don't know. Well, how to get this name? sounds a little darker.
everybody's
Yeah.
like Sugar and Spice. Yeah. So what's going on? Is there a strip
Yeah.
club? So, but across the street was a drive-through where you pull up and get pop and beer and all that
Yeah.
stuff. It was like a little drive-through thing, and which was the worst thing that could be next to this basketball court because everybody went over and got
Yeah.
all the older people got beer, so beer's laying
Yeah.
everywhere. But I'm gonna tell you what, and I tell people this story all the time. Everyone from the inner city came to these courts, and when I say there were some tough customers there, man, like from the
Yeah.
hood. I started going down there when I was around like maybe
Oh,
11
wow.
is when I was allowed to go down there. I had to sit on the like hill and watch because I wasn't old enough to
Right.
play, right? But when I was sitting on the hill, there would be guns, there would be boom boxes, and 40
Yeah.
ounces. I'm not making
Yeah, I
this up.
believe you.
And I'm like, but I'm gonna tell you what, not once did anything ever happen to me
Yeah.
down there. No fights, nobody messed with me. It was all love because I think myself and there were a couple other guys that played down there that were younger. I think those guys saw a lot of potential
Mhm.
and they wanted to kind of help us.
Yeah.
And they were like, man, these guys have a chance to go play. We need to really help them. So I developed a lot of confidence. Um, I come down one time and I pass up on a shot. And the guy I was playing with, Money Station, was his
That's the
nickname. I don't
nickname.
even know his real
Oh
name.
my
His name
gosh.
was Money Station. He did not
Oh
miss.
my gosh.
And he cussed me out. I mean, cussed me out and said, if you don't shoot it again, I'm gonna bust you up. And I came down next time and I shot it and I missed it. But he applauded me. He was like, at least you took it this
Mm.
time. Next time you're gonna make it. And sure enough, I made it next time. And that's where I first really developed that confidence that I needed. But without street ball, man, um, I wouldn't have had that, man. I got my swag from street
Hmm.
ball. I used to, watch the guys play and kind of steal their,
Did you get
everything
it? Did
was a
you get a
little
nickname?
extra. I didn't out there when I was playing street ball. I didn't have a nickname until I got a little bit older. It was microwave,
Okay,
but
that's a good one.
because it was like Vinnie
Yeah.
Johnson who played for the Detroit Pistons. So he would remember Vinnie used to come off the bench and
Yeah.
score real quick, and I used to come off the bench and just fire it
Ready
up.
to
So
go.
I was microwave Meachum.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah, man.
Let's circle back and talk a little Bearcats, that 97 to 99 era. You got Huggins there. You mentioned Jordan Brand kind of coming on board, which is kind of the beginning of a different era, I feel like, in basketball. The way that they, Iverson is in the NBA at that point, and it just is this shift, I think, towards popular culture in basketball, for a lack of a better term. And I think the Bearcats really rode that wave and helped to propel it even further upwards. So let's just start out. What was it in general? What was it like to be a part of the program? And then if you want to circle back and tell us how you got on the program, because you're a walk-on, you mentioned. So how'd you end up on the team?
Yeah, it was a dream come true. play for the Bearcats. Like I told you about that basketball court in the backyard, I dream about
Yeah.
hitting that game-winning shot for the Bearcats at 9 years old. So then, to make it
Follow through.
it was like nearly
Yeah.
impossible. But so the process to making that happen, it kind of happened by accident, because, most players that go on and play college, have, great basketball careers in high school. They get recruited or they're a preferred walk on, or at least they have a good high school career and they go on to play college. Whereas in my case, Aaron, I had a very rocky up and down high school career. I only played one full season of high school
Huh.
basketball. And yeah, I dealt with knee injury. I dealt with academic problem. I quit on a coach. So I had all these different issues. But what happened was I developed this chip on my shoulder. I played with guys, either with or against guys that were at that time way more talented than me, way more accomplished. But I felt like deep down inside that I could be just as good as them, and they were going off to play college basketball all throughout Ohio and Kentucky, and I was like the only one that didn't, because obviously I didn't really warrant the right to, with not having a great resume. So I go to UC, University of Cincinnati, as a student my first year, and at the time the Bearcats are number one in the country. Antonio Wingfield, Damon Flint. I mean, I can go on and on with all
Yeah.
these great
You can keep
players
going. I love
that are
hearing, because it like triggers the fun memories of watching those teams too. They were just so much fun. Like you said, they had swag and style and just played with an energy. And of course, Huggins just brings his own kind of style and charisma to the sidelines too,
sure,
just strutting along. That
no,
barrel
no
chest.
question, no question. And so like it, I wanted to play back when I was 9 years old, and Bearcat basketball wasn't great back
Mm.
then. So here I am wanting to play for the Bearcats,
Number one.
and then there, and now I have it, like I'm to the age
Yeah.
where I can, and they've got the number one recruiting class. Like, Danny Fortune, one of the most decorated Bearcats of all
Mhm.
time. I'm like, I've got to make this happen. So I'm on campus one day. And remember, I'm just a student, and I'm walking through campus, and I'm like, I want to be a walk on. Like, I've got to make this happen. And I'm literally walking to my apartment, and this guy comes walking by me, and we just go boom. And he was a walk on. And so I stop him. His name is Jerome Gray. And I said, Jerome, hey, I want to be a walk on next year. I know you're leaving. And do you think you could help me? And he was like, give me your number. And he's like, here's my number. And he goes, if you're really serious about it, give me a
So
call.
wait, you didn't
So
know him? Did you know him or at all?
just from, I did.
Okay.
I did. I did know Jerome. So it wasn't like I was walking up on a
Right.
random guy. However, he's from Toledo,
Okay.
Ohio. He had originally committed to Miami Oxford,
Mhm.
and then the coach there, Joby Wright, left and went to Wyoming to be the coach. So when he left, Jerome came to Cincinnati as a preferred
Mm.
walk on. So Jerome said, call me. So I call him, and Jerome goes, hey, we're going to start working out tonight. And he goes, meet me at midnight.
Jesus.
It's a true story. I meet him at midnight, and he goes, I need you to get access to a gym. And I did. I had keys to one of the high school gyms here locally, and we'd go in there at all hours and just work. And he was like, I'm going to physically get you as ready as possible, but more importantly, we've mentally got to get you ready.
Oh.
Because he's like, the mental grind is way, way tougher than the physical.
Mm.
So he's like, it's 90-10, 90%, 10%. So we prepared for months and months, and then finally the opportunity came. You'll like this story. The opportunity came for me to sit in Bob Huggins' office and ask him for the opportunity to be a walk-on. So I love telling this story. So Jerome was prepping me, right? And I'm writing all these notes down on a note card.
Oh
Like, this
God.
is what I'm gonna say to
Yeah,
Hug.
yeah,
This is
yeah.
what, and he and I practice
Running
it.
it
Jerome
over
and
in
I
my head.
practice. Run it. Aaron, we went through it like 8 times. He's throwing all kind of stuff back
Yeah.
at me. And then he goes, you're ready. Okay, so I got all these note cards. So go home one more time. I look through them. Wake up, go to Hugs's office at noon the next day. Walk into Hugs's office. Now it's dark, right? His office was always kind of a little dark. He had this like black carpet, and it was like that thick carpet from the '90s. So it was like you could trip walking
Yeah.
on it.
Don't wear
And
your
he had this
slides.
dark.
You'll be tripping for sure.
Your slides would disappear in the carpet. He had this dark cherry wood
Oh
furniture,
God.
and he's like sitting in this chair, right? And this chair is like, I swear it's elevated. And then I sit in this chair, and it's like a
Yeah, yeah,
beanbag. It's sinking, and I'm like looking at this monstrous figure,
yeah.
right? But here's where this is what happened. I'm a huge, huge Michael Jordan fan. I love Michael Jordan. And I'm sitting down, I'm getting ready. I'm like, okay, all that stuff you practiced, all the note cards, here we go. And I look to my left, and there's a big frame picture of Michael Jordan and Bob Huggins together. And Michael Jordan has his arms around Hugs, just smiling. And I'm telling you, my heart just started going boom, boom. That picture made me so nervous because Jordan's my
Yeah.
idol. And here he is,
Hugging.
like hugging. And I'm like, so I look at Hugs, and I'm like, so Huggins goes, how can I help you? Aaron, everything I wrote on my note
It's
card,
gone.
I forgot. I forgot. And so I learned a very
Michael
valuable
Jordan.
lesson that
That's
day.
all I have to say. Yeah.
I learned a very valuable lesson that day, and that was sometimes you just got to speak from your heart,
Yeah.
throw the script out the window.
Yeah.
And I did. I just said, Hugs, this is my story, and this is why I want to walk on. This is how I can help you. This is how you can help me. And he gave me an opportunity, and I'm very thankful for that.
That's great. Telling that, it really does seem to fit because I always view Huggins as kind of a, not totally counterculture, but he always seemed like a bit of an outsider in the era that he was in. Like would take guys that maybe didn't fit the the
Yeah,
quote unquote
no question.
typical college basketball player. Just he wanted a little bit of the attitude and a little bit of the feistiness that
Yes,
other coaches maybe weren't looking for because that fit his brand and his personality.
no question. And I think a large part of that comes to when he took the job, he couldn't compete against some of these other schools that were bigger, getting certain players. So he's like, okay, where do I fit in this landscape?
Yeah.
How can I find not I don't say loophole is the right word, but looking for certain players that kind of fit the brand I'm trying to build. And he says, okay, if we're not going to be the most skilled and get all the McDonald's All Americans, we're going to have the toughest dudes.
Mhm.
So he started grabbing these tough dudes from around, the country, JUCO
Yeah.
guys, and then he's got one of the best weight training staffs in America, Mickey Marotti. We used to call it Bodies by Marotti. And he told Mickey, he says, I want you to make these guys football players on the court. And he goes, we are physically going to beat teams down. Guys that are more skilled, we're just going to be stronger. We're just going to physically wear them down. And that was the brand at the start. And obviously, through the success with that, then he started getting in more of the McDonald's All-Americans, the Damon Flints, the Danny Fortsons, the D'Antonio Wingfields, the Kenny Satterfields, Dermar Johnsons, blah, blah, blah. I can go on
All
and
right.
on. But that didn't happen day one. He had to start with the Andre Tates, the Lou Banks, Lavertus Robinsons. Like those were the guys that kind of were the building block of what we saw later on that everybody recognizes as the brand of Bearcat basketball. And if you think about it, it's 2022 and the Bearcats play Temple, I think, this coming
Yeah.
week. And everyone will look at the Bearcats on the court and say they should be tough. They're, rooted in tough, tough defense. That started way back with Hugs when he first got here in '89 or, whatever it was.
Yeah, that's interesting to have that big of an effect, kind of legacy, even after you're gone. But he really was that kind of force of personality on the campus. Well, give me, I'm sure you got a million stories from that era, but give me like one or two that really just stand out to you about being a part of the team. And I wanted to see what was your role like on the team, because I always think about the walk-on guys and seeing them on the bench. And I knew some of them when I was at IU, and you do end up playing a real like role in you're roommates with the guys who are getting playing time. You're interacting with them all the time. So you end up being kind of a, I don't know, like mentally you're just helping out in ways too, not just in practice, the different ways you can contribute to the team.
Yeah, so my role, I think, changed over my time there. So when I first got there, I had to fight through a lot of adversity because here I am, like I said, my resume is pretty much blank. So I'm coming in here and they're like, who is this dude? And,
He
I
must have had
kind
all
of,
the note cards when he talked to Huggins.
no, no, it was, my first year was very, very tough. And I'd be lying if I said there weren't moments that I just didn't want to do it anymore. I wanted to quit. But I knew, like, I'm at my dream place. I can't leave. And I had to really fight through a lot of things. And I think my role changed in that I went from a guy who wasn't supposed to be there to a guy who was used as an example. So it's like, Hugs could use me as an example of, hey, why can't you do like this guy here? He's working his ass off. He's fighting through all this adversity. He's less talented than all you guys. So I kind of became that figure that he could use. And I kind of relished that role. I enjoyed having that role. I understood the entire time, I was at UC that I would never be an integral part, like minutes wise or statistics wise. I was going to be a practice guy. I was going to be a good person and guy walking around campus that talked the brand up and made people want to come to Bearcat games. And so, I accepted that role and loved it. I wasn't worried about making the shots or playing a lot. I loved being a part of it.
So what about those teams do you remember the most, or do you get asked about the most? Because I know, I'm sure, again, I've had you on here to talk about the Bearcats from that era, but just in general. But what's the first question they've got for you about those teams, or what's the first story that comes to mind for you?
I get asked a lot about how crazy was Bob Huggins, and then what was it like, playing with Kenyon Martin, and for a while I was his roommate
Oh,
on the
okay.
road, and what were those conversations like? I get asked that a lot. Hugs was crazy. He was demanding. he was. I think when I say he was crazy, I mean that because the players, a lot of guys I play with are crazy, and Hugs knew he had to be crazier. So these guys would look at him like, yo,
Yeah,
this
I can't
guy's
mess with this
crazier
guy.
than me. Yeah. I mean, think about it. We had
That's
guys like
hilarious.
Reuben Patterson,
The Kobe
Mel
stopper.
Levitt, the Kobe stopper, right? Mel Levitt. I mean, roots from the hood,
Yeah,
man. And Hugs was like, I don't care where you from, blah blah blah. I'm
yeah.
coming right. I think he gained a lot of guys' respect right off the bat, and not backing down from any of those guys. Um, Hugs would come at you. He would let you know, but there was a huge, I think, love factor that it was almost like he was yelling at you, but you knew once you stepped off that court that it was all love, man. It was all love, and he would do anything for you. And then secondly, I mentioned Kenyon Martin. Kenyon Martin's one of the smartest people I've ever been around in my life. He just has this unbelievable, like, um, this common sense, this great street sense. He's, if you ever, look at you hear about some like, piano players that just naturally pick it up and they're just like these savants of the,
Yeah.
music world. Well, I felt like Kenyon was that of basketball. Like
Huh.
he just picked up stuff and he would know what the other team was doing in a timeout. He would go, this guy's going to run off a double screen. He's going to fade here and this guy's going to pop here. And we're like, what? And sure enough, he
Really?
would tell them, he'd tell guys, pop out there. And
Huh.
sure enough, that would, what would happen. So playing with him, because people always are like, oh, he could jump high, he could block shots, he could dunk.
Sure.
They'd see all that, right? But what they didn't know was his level in basketball IQ, his level of understanding of basketball IQ were through the roof. I mean, just insane. And so to tell you a quick story, before every game, we would have a walkthrough. Coach Huggins or whoever had the scout for that particular game would lead the walkthrough. So Coach Rod Baker was one of our assistants, or Mick Cronin, who's now the UCLA coach. He was one of our assistants. They would lead the walkthrough, and we'd run through the other team's sets, and then we would run what we're going to do against that other team. Any counters to what they do, we would kind of go through. Well, my last year, it got to the point where Kenyon was running the walkthrough.
Really? That's it.
Man, we were in a
That's
hotel,
cool.
and we were getting ready to play. I want to say like DePaul, because I remember it was really, really cold. And we were playing like DePaul, and we're in the lobby of, I'm sorry, we're in a ballroom in the hotel, and the coaches had made tape with, like a half court with medical tape
Yeah.
in his ballroom, had the chairs all moved, and Kenyon's running the whole walkthrough.
Wow.
Coaches sit back,
Huh.
and he started doing that. I mean, that's high
That's
level.
next level stuff. Yeah.
That is next level.
That's a cool perspective on him because I think because of the emotion that he would show on the court. Sometimes guys like that don't get credit for being as cerebral because they let that show outwardly. You think the guys who don't make a lot of, noise on the court as the more coaching types. But I could see that, he's a guy that Jason Kidd later loved playing with, so it makes sense that
you talk about a match made in heaven.
Kidding.
Two high level thinkers, like Kidd's, like they always say Jay Kidd was like 2 plays ahead.
No doubt.
Kind of like Magic was. He was like, he knew what was going to happen. And now you got another guy like Ken.
Same thing. Yeah. Yeah, bore
Insane.
out. If he hadn't had to play against Shaq, that's the only problem. That's the only problem.
Have you ever seen a picture of Shaq dunking on the entire Nets team?
No, I don't think so.
Oh man, there's a picture of you can just Google Shaq dunk on the Nets,
Okay.
and there's Shaq's dunking it, and Kenyon's kind of towards the back, and they had this guy named God, what was his name? Aaron Williams.
Oh yeah.
For the Nets. He's pulling on Shaq's jersey, and they're 3 other guys. It's crazy, man.
Nothing
I'm
can do.
That dude was a force.
Well, okay, what about Jordan Brand? Because we were talking about, you got the Jordan Brand sweatshirt on right now. What was it like? Because there is this era then where the shoe companies, kind of come into their own. We just did one of our kind of sister groups did World of 5 Star and was talking about how the camps had changed at that time from the 5 Star camp to Adidas and Nike, and then Jordan is kind of coming into his own as its own kind of standalone brand, and Cincinnati's kind of there at the start of that. So what was the role like in them coming in? How much fun was it to be a part of that too?
Yeah. So growing up, pretty much I want to say almost my entire basketball career, other than real early, 8, 9, 10 years old, I wore Jordans. I played in Air Jordan sneakers.
Nice.
Black cement threes, first shoe I ever had. Or I should say, first shoe I paid for. And I just always played games in. If you look at any of my early pictures, it's Jordan. And I was collecting Jordans before it was cool to be a collector.
Yeah.
I was doing odd jobs, and people were spending money in my neighborhood going and buying gear. So you ever heard of Value City?
Oh yeah.
Did you guys ever have
we
that?
got
so
it. Yep.
right. So my buddies would cut grass, rake leaves, get money, and they go to Value City and go buy a jean jacket and the jean pants,
Right.
or you remember troop suits? I don't know if you remember those.
No.
LL Cool J made those famous. They were terrible. And they would go buy these troop suits and all this stuff. Me, I'm going to Foot Locker, Finish Line, or whatever it is, and I'm getting Jordans. Yeah. And so that became, my thing. So when I do make it as a walk-on, we're still Nike, during the off season. And I'm man, I've not hooped in Nike. So I'm nervous.
Yeah.
So I'm maybe I can sneak and wear some Jordans. And the trainer at the time, the guy who pretty much ran all of our gear, he was everyone has to be in the issued Nikes. And I'm oh God.
Ooh,
so they gave us
shoes
these
too? Oh no.
They gave us they gave us these Pippen Air Maxes.
Okay.
I can't remember. Man, they were the worst. I was I will give these away to anybody that wants them. And so I have them, and I tried like playing open gyms in them, and I'm like, this is not gonna work. I told my roommate, I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do, and my roommate's like, what? You ain't gonna play much anyway, so who cares? And I was like,
You're
there
like,
goes your tickets to the game. So,
yeah.
um, so, so we're finishing up practice, and Hugs goes, we have a meeting, in the locker room. We have a speaker coming in, and I'm like, oh Lord, because usually that means somebody got in trouble
Yeah.
or something happened, and we're getting lectured or
Yeah.
something. So we go in there, and there's these guys sitting there, and one of the guys is named Gentry Humphrey, and other guys, Will was, his name is Will Smith, like, but not obviously the
The
Fresh Prince, but
that'd be really
not
wild.
not
What's Will
not
Smith
not
doing here?
yeah, not the guy born and raised in
Yeah.
West Philadelphia. So there, I'm like looking at Gentry, and I'm like, yo, he looks familiar. So I sit down, and Kenyon Martin sits next to me in the locker room, always. And I'm like, yo, I know this guy from somewhere. And so Gentry's like, hey, my name is Gentry Humphrey. I'm the president of the Jordan brand. And I'm like, I hit him. I'm like, yo, I've seen him in the
Yeah.
magazines, like Slam and all
Yeah.
that. And the other guy's like, I'm Will Smith. I'm a developer for the shoes. And they're like, we're here to tell you that you are now a Jordan school.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like,
You must have thought it was like a joke or something. You're like, what?
I'm like, is this real? I'm like waiting for somebody to wake me up.
Yeah.
Um, so anyway, they lay out the uniforms and they lay out the shoes, and I'm like, yo, this is insane. So we're the first Jordan team ever to step on the floor in college basketball wearing the Jordan uniform. So the other
That's
teams
cool.
was Cal, St. John's, and North Carolina A&T, and then us.
Yeah.
We were the first ones to play a game wearing the Jordan stuff. And then our shoes, like our team shoes, weren't ready. So they sent us, like, I don't even remember the name of the shoes they sent us, but they sent us these shoes. And so our team shoes weren't ready yet. And so then one day I come into the locker room, and there was like 4 boxes at everybody's locker, and they were like, they weren't your normal like Jordan boxes.
Yeah.
They were like these like weird, like, warehouse boxes. So I open it up, all Jordan 12s, the playoff Jordan 12s.
Nice.
They sent us, like, everyone had 4 pair, and they were like, hey, you got four. I ended up with 8 pair. And so I'm like, man, I gave a pair to like a buddy of mine.
Jeez.
I threw a pair in the crowd after a game.
Oh my gosh.
We had that many shoes.
You're living
like,
it up.
so I'm like, like people throwing money in the air. I'm throwing shoes.
Jordans.
So it was unbelievable. And we would go play. I've told this story many a times, but we would go play teams. We played Rhode Island with Lamar Odom and Cuttino Mobley. And I remember Cuttino Mobley saying to us, like, hey, man, I should have went to Cincinnati, man. Your guys' uniforms are tough. Like, these are unbelievable.
Oh
like,
my
Dwayne,
gosh.
D. Wade, and everyone's like,
Yeah.
those uniforms are amazing. So it was unbelievable. It really was. We would walk through the airports,
Yeah.
going to games, and Huggins made us dress in all black.
Yeah.
And he had to make sure that everything had a hoodie on it too. So our coats, our sweatshirts had hoodies. So we would come through an airport. Imagine this whole Bearcat team walking through, black on black, hoodie up, just walking through.
looking like some ninjas or something.
Seriously, like, Hugs want us to have this swag, this attitude. Yeah. It was unbelievable, man.
That's so much fun for kids too. I mean, you see how you can get roped into that, and then coupled with all the other things that he's got going in, just kind of fit in lockstep, and you love it when there's that kind of synergy.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Well, give me a Cronin story, because I heard you mention his name there. I don't think I even realized. So he was an assistant coach on the team?
His assistant. Yeah, he was so he started off as when he was an assistant, I think he was the guard coach.
Okay.
So when we would, in practice, you break down into guards and bigs, and you go do your, like, separate things. And so you do drills based on the different, like, plays, the sets we run. So Mick is having us, run and do these sets. And For some reason, the guards had done a terrible job, and Hugs started yelling at Mick, and he kicked Mick out of the drill
No.
as a coach
Oh no.
and sent him down to the bigs. Have you ever seen Mick Cronin?
Yeah.
He's really short.
Yeah.
So he's down there with 6'9", Kenyon Martin, 6'10", Jermaine Tate,
Yeah.
Bobby Brandon, Ryan Fletcher, and here you got Lil Mick
Yep.
doing the big man drills, which he could coach.
Yeah.
But it was just kind of funny that he was down there, but Hugs was on his ass that day. And so, but I think that led to, him, learning a lot through Hugs. And then obviously he went on to coach with Patino. And then he grinded his way up through Murray State, and then became the Bearcat coach. Did a phenomenal job getting us back to prominence. And then how about the run he had at UCLA?
I know.
Who would have thunk that? Weren't they in like the play-in game?
I know. Crazy. Just crazy. Yeah.
So good. Yeah, good for him, man. He's a Cincinnati guy. So, the more successful stories out of this area, I think the better too.
No doubt. Well, I got a few other things. I really appreciate you coming on tonight, but I got a couple other topics I want to get to. So I want to talk a little bit about your stuff. So it mentions Shining Star Sports. I want to hear a little bit about that, and then give us a shout out to the podcast that you're on. I saw some of them on YouTube, some of the episodes on YouTube.
Yeah. So Shining Star Sports is my basketball program. It's 21 years, and coming up in a month. It'll be 21
That's
years. Awesome. Yeah, thank you. And we have over 30 AAU teams starting from 4th grade all the way up to 11th grade. We've put like thousands of kids in college for basketball. And then we kind of transitioned using all the AAU teams into, we have an apparel side of the company where, people can buy our Shining Star gear. We have a media company, which I'll segue that into the podcast here in a second. And the great thing I think about what we do is we have opportunities for kids to come back and work in the program. So we have an internship program. We try to have about 8 interns a year, and that helps propel them to either make their resume better or get them jobs.
It's about those connections that you were talking about.
Absolutely, no question. And so when we started the media company, that kind of encompassed several things we house within the Shine One Media. And one of them is the Bearcat Basketball Podcast that I actually accidentally started during the pandemic.
Yeah. That's just like us. That's what we did.
It just happened. And so and I got to grab my charger as I talk here.
Okay. Do it.
For some reason the app's like soaking my battery up. I don't want it to die on me. So the crazy thing is when the podcast had originally started, it was basically a bunch of tweets. I would send out all these tweets related to Bearcat basketball, and fans were like, "Hey, you need to have your own podcast because you can only send out so many tweets to kind of get your your message across, right?" And then it just so I started doing the podcast, but I think the key was, and this, like with what you guys do, it's important to find like your lane and where you fit in the landscape of things and just be really, really good in that lane, right? So I was like, how can my podcast be different than all the others? And we've got a lot of great journalists in our city, and I don't want to step on their toes. I don't want to get in their way and their lane. So I was like, nobody is interviewing all the former great players that we've had come through this school. And I have access to all these former players because I'm around. I know them. I've got numbers. And so that kind of became the deal. So I did maybe 2 podcasts in which I just talked about the Bearcat basketball team for that season, just to kind of build a base. And then I started with my first interview of a player. His name was Charles Williams, and he played for the Bearcats. He played actually with me, but he played in the years when we were Nike prior to me.
Okay.
He has absolutely fascinating stories from Compton, California. Grew up in the gang banging, Crips and Bloods and all that, and just a good success story. So I interviewed him, and it was a huge success. And then I interviewed another guy named Ryan Fletcher. was the guy who threw the pass when we beat Duke
Oh,
in the Great
okay.
Alaska Shootout, and that was a big success. And I'm like, we got something here. So that's when we found our lane. And
Nice.
so I've been on the pursuit of, I think we're on episode 105, something like that we've done. And I've interviewed, I mean,
You got a bunch of people on
oh,
there. I was looking through some of the people, and if people are fans of Cincinnati basketball, they're just good stories. I mean, that's what I love about podcasts, is just the opportunity to tell, little stories inside of a bigger story, and I find there's so much fun in that.
no question about that. And here's the crazy thing about it. Like, these former players, some of them have never, ever told their story.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, we've got these great players, we've got great tradition, at our school, and people really don't know the full story, how they got to
Yeah,
Cincinnati, what they've done after. And so I've kind of made it my job and mission to, help these guys get their story out a little bit more. And for some guys, they're misunderstood.
mm,
May have went through, like, I interviewed Art Long, who played for the Bearcats back in the mid '90s, and he had been through all kind of problems and issues, and just he's back on his feet doing well. And I'm like, man, tell your story,
that's cool.
bro. Like,
Yeah,
you're not in that same space where you were 10 years ago. You're in a good space now. Let's talk about that.
yeah.
That's a great story. So it's been received very well, and I hope to keep doing it, and just keep telling people's story, which I truly truly love, being able to tell stories, other people's stories at least.
Love it. Okay, I got last two. I'm going to put you on the spot here. Name, image, likeness has been something that we've been talking about all year. So I got to get your NIL top five Cincinnati Bearcats. So not necessarily top five players. So I've heard a bunch of people have gone different ways. Like Danny Manning, he picked Wilt Chamberlain as number one. But then I had Charlie Miller on from IU, and he picked himself as his number one pick. Then he went with like
Wow.
some singers to fill it out. So NIL, who would your top five Bearcats be?
Okay, so let me just make sure I understand this. So,
So
um,
you're like their agent. So you're gonna be like representing. You're building out your agency kind of, and you're picking guys who you're gonna be able to sign to big NIL deals. So it
you
might be
think these
might
guys
be
are going to get the biggest deals?
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, number one has to be Oscar Robertson,
Okay.
the Big O. I mean, he has just the most legendary image of him getting the rebound with his legs, spread out.
Yeah.
I would immediately take him, over to the Mercedes Benz dealer, and we take that
Oh my
image and make
gosh.
that a right.
Oh wow. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
we're over there.
I like it.
And there's so much you can do with this, just the name, the Big
Big
O.
O. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Got to
Like,
be an Oscar
gosh,
Mayer crossover there, right? Some kind of
there,
hot dog.
there you go. Some kind of cereal. You
Cereal. That's
know,
even better. Yes. Yes.
right?
Yeah.
There,
Kellogg's
there,
Big
there's
O's.
Oh man, there's
Yeah.
so many opportunities there. Then I have to say a very close second would be Kenyon Martin. Um, I mean, just the name, Kenyon Martin with K. We definitely have to go to
Okay.
Kmart.
Yeah.
Uh, I
Yeah.
mean, if
Revitalize
Kmart,
it.
yeah, if Kmart doesn't do anything, I don't
Yeah.
know what's going on. Um, and I think with Kenyon. So I say Oscar and then Kenyon are probably the two most decorated and recognizable Bearcats of all time. And I
Yeah.
think that ties into the NIL situation. They look for guys that are recognizable
Yeah.
and fans really really love. Um, and me, I tell you what, man, nobody had more swag. And I put him at number three, but he's my number one favorite Bearcat of all time, and that's Nick Van Exel.
Oh, nice.
Nick the Quick.
Love Van Exel. Lefty too. I'm a lefty, so I've got a soft spot for
Are you?
any lefties. Yep.
Yeah, man. Nick the Quick.
Great
Just
nickname too. So that leads right into it.
right.
Yeah.
There's so much. There's so much what you can do with that, and he was kind of known for, like, he would dish out the assist. He was, really, and you can go a lot with that, with a lot of companies and commercials, like,
Mm-hmm.
Nick could be on there, like, dishing out whatever at a restaurant or some.
Pizzas, or
Exactly.
Jiffy
And,
Lube. He'd get you out and be
for
doing
sure.
an oil
Quick.
change. Yeah.
Nick the Quick, get him. See, you and I together, bro, we'd be
Yeah,
making
that's
millions,
right.
man.
That's right.
We'd be killing them. One people probably wouldn't guess, and that is a member of the Final Four team for the Bearcats. Probably he's one of the glue members to the entire Bearcat basketball program, and that's Terry Nelson. And he currently does the color commentary for the Bearcats.
Okay.
Terry is so good at speaking and just has this presence about him. Every company in the city would love to have somebody with his mouthpiece that can just talk it up. So he would be amazing. I personally, if I had a company and Terry was playing, I'm definitely going,
Terry.
NIL deal with him. So I would probably say for my fifth and final one, I would pick, and there's several guys, but follow me when I say this.
Okay.
Because we are in Cincinnati and we're in the greater Cincinnati area, I think you have to get a hometown hero,
Okay.
a Cincinnati guy, to kind of represent, be that hometown hero. And there have been tons of guys that have played for the Bearcats. Excuse me, Bobby Brandon. You've got, Ryan Fletcher was from Middletown, which is kind of near Dayton, but Damon Flint, he was McDonald's All-American. Yeah, for sure. Jeremiah Davenport, who's currently playing for the Bearcats. He played here for Moeller High School in Cincinnati. So I'd probably say that fifth spot would be for, a local guy.
Love it.
That hometown hero vibe. And because, our city, much like, other places, but I think Cincinnati for sure, we love our own, man.
A lot of pride. Yeah.
A lot of pride in Cincinnati, man. If you come out of here and make it big or do great things, man, the city does, support and love you. So that would kind of be my take on that top five.
Love it. All right, we're gonna get you out of here on a couple quick hitters. What's the coolest arena you played in?
Freedom Hall.
Freedom Hall. Who were the craziest opposing fans?
UNC Charlotte. I'll tell you a story.
Okay, yeah.
Let me give you a story with both.
Get this.
Freedom Hall, Louisville was always one of our biggest rivals. And Denny Crum, who coached there for years, great coach, great person.
Yeah.
He always had them ready. And Louisville just loves their basketball, man. And Freedom Hall felt like, and Bellarmine still plays in Freedom Hall.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they do. But Louisville now plays in the Yum Center.
Yeah.
But Freedom Hall, it feels like people are on top of you.
Yeah.
One year, Denny Crum's team was down, and I actually got into a game at Louisville. Nice. And I was like, I'm looking around. I feel like the people that are sitting in the stands are like
gonna fall on you.
Yeah, I was like, wow. But they loved. I mean, and it wasn't like they were nasty fans. They were just they loved. Like you'd move and they go, ooh. Yeah. Like you take like a step and they're like, travel. I mean, they just loved. They loved it, and it wasn't like a LA crowd that kind of gets in late, halftime. The place is half full because everybody's out talking. Louisville fans are there early, don't get up at halftime, and don't leave until the game's over. So Freedom Hall, second. The craziest fans, UNC Charlotte, that was probably our biggest in-conference rival because we were always battling for conference championships. And whether it was the conference tournament or even regular season, we were always battling with UNC Charlotte. They had this guard named Diego Guevara. And Diego became probably the most disliked player that the Bearcats played, of all time. He's up there as one. And I'm actually interviewing him next month for my podcast.
Oh, that's great.
And I hit him up, and he's like, we don't know each other, but like,
Yeah.
I hit him up. I was like, I want you on my podcast. He's
Won't be
like,
all hate.
yeah,
You're not
but
setting me up or something.
yeah, he was like, first of all, he asked me, was it like when I was going to the podcast? He's like, is it like live?
Yeah.
Because he's like, because people will boo me, and I'm like, no, they're not. It's not live, and people would love to kind of hear your perspective.
Oh, that would be great. You definitely should hook that up if you can.
Get a live audience.
Yeah, that's right.
Boo!
Yeah.
But he knows he's like one of the most disliked. So
Awesome.
when he would come to Cincinnati, so here's what happened. At the time, he had a girlfriend, which I think he ended up marrying, but the like TV, ESPN or whoever it was, kind of got wind that his girlfriend was always at the games and like, or fiance maybe.
Yeah.
So every time he made a 3-pointer, he'd blow a kiss to her, and she would blow a kiss back. Oh, bro.
He's asking for it.
You know how that did not go over well at our arena. So we were on his ass. So we would go to Charlotte, and I'll never forget this. We go to UNC Charlotte, and they're just Charlotte now, but back then they were UNC Charlotte, and they were really good. They had really good players. Gosh, what was the coach's name? I can't even remember his name. So we pull up, and usually, the opposing team will get there early to shoot around, kind of get settled, and nobody's there. We're there like maybe 3 hours prior to tip. This guy's got to get taped and just a whole bunch of stuff. 2.5, 3 hours, whatever. And we get there, and we come out, and we're like, what in the world? The student section's like packed. And they're like booing and yelling at us. And we're like, what in the world? Like, you've been here this whole time? And so the year prior, I wasn't on the team, but we beat them, and they threw stuff at
oh my gosh.
Well, I wasn't on the team, but at the Bearcats.
Yeah.
So the year I was there, we beat them on their home court, and they start throwing stuff. Well, my teammates got the basketballs that were for warm-ups and started unloading them on fans, like hitting them in the face. And the fans stormed the court.
Oh my!
And we're like running us
gosh.
off the court. We're like literally running off the court.
Out of here.
It was crazy.
That is crazy.
They were
no love lost there.
Man, I was like, man, I don't ever want to go back. And I'll tell you a funny thing. Guy I went to high school with, he signed a full scholarship to play soccer there.
Mm-hmm.
So every time we went to Charlotte, I would always go up in the stands and say what's up to him.
Oh, jeez.
And he would go,
you're asking for it. Yeah, you're gonna get him beat up.
I was like, I think we gotta have.
We'll see it after the game.
Yeah, he didn't want to be because they're all now looking at him like, what's up, bro?
Yeah, right.
I'm about to whoop his ass.
Yeah. Watch out for flying objects, huh?
Oh man, they would throw stuff. But I tell you, let me. Can I add one more thing on?
Yeah, you go, man. This is great.
Xavier, the crosstown shootout.
Yeah,
is the
as a casual fan of both teams, that's one I tune in. Like when I circle that on my calendar because there's always I love those type of rivalries.
Aaron, it is real. That game is real. There's a real dislike, and it's gotten to the point though where it's like, I think the dislike is not where it used to be because there was a big brawl.
Yeah.
Which you probably remember or saw between Xavier and UC. It was when it was at Xavier. Even prior to that, like Huggins got into it with, at the time, Pete Gillen was the head coach of Xavier, and they got into it after the game, didn't shake hands. And there's just been stories after stories of, how each players, like the players didn't like each other, and that was real. Fans didn't like each other. But now people, I think, more on the mutual respect level, but I tell you, man, they get after it on Twitter though. I tell you,
is that a parts of the city thing, like where Cincinnati's located as opposed to Xavier, or private school public school type thing or what?
So our city's very like it's divided into like you've got the east side, you've got the west side of town,
Yeah.
which are two completely separate like mentalities.
Yeah.
Not to say one's better than the other, but like people were like, "Hey, I'm from the west side." Somebody
Right.
like, "No, I'm from the east side." Like it's a different mentality. I'd say the pockets of our city that have more of the Catholic roots and
Okay.
Catholic schools
Yeah.
are more leaning towards Xavier because Xavier's a Catholic school,
Makes sense.
and a lot of the public school area kids are more UC.
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably say, I mean, in UC's, I'd probably say there's more Bearcat fans in Cincinnati than Xavier, and I don't mean to like take a shot at Xavier, but
Yeah. Yeah.
the reality is we have a football team too,
Right.
so
That matters
that
these days.
that matters, right?
Yeah.
And it's just it is what it is. So if we even if Xavier beat us this year, or even they're kind of winning the rivalry over whatever they say 5 or 7 year span, even if they're doing that, we are still looked at as the bigger brand just because of the combination of basketball and football, in our city. So
I think you might have the uniform win too. So I don't know even those new retro uniforms that they're about to wear. Those look
the
pretty
Cats.
nice. Yeah, that looks pretty nice.
Yeah, what's funny about that? So gosh, I forget how many years ago it was. Gosh, I wish I had that. If I had that picture, it was up in one of my rooms. I wish I had that. So they had us, my senior year. We came out for Midnight Madness,
Mm-hmm.
preseason basketball, and they had like all of us wearing. Okay, I know what it was. So it was my. I take that back. It wasn't my senior. It was my first year that we went to Jordan. So they wanted to kind of do like a history of UC uniforms.
Okay.
So they found like all these old uniforms, and they had us wearing like, and I'm like the one that said the Cats.
Yeah.
My teammate Dewan Baker was wearing that, and there were a couple others. I'm like, why have we not like retro these?
Yeah.
And I've been screaming that for years. Like, we've got to retro some of these like forgotten years, because that's kind of like a
Yeah.
forgotten uniform. I'm like,
Yeah.
those will go over really well. So I'm so glad
Yeah. It's
that
gonna look cool.
they were able to make it happen. Like I've been
Yeah.
screaming that. Like there's another Cincinnati uniform.
Yeah.
Yo, it is wild, dude. Like I I don't know how it's like. I can't even explain how like Cincinnati's like written out on it. It looks like
hmm
they almost made a mistake. But I always tell people like those would be so dope to redo.
You might have to get me a picture of these because we might be able to make this happen.
I will.
Okay.
I will. I'm gonna look it up here in a minute. My buddy, like he's like a historian with
Yeah.
sports stuff, and he started sending me all these images. Like, have you ever seen this? Have you ever seen
Yeah.
this? And I'm like, yo, I've never seen that Bearcat uniform. And there's like one Cincinnati uniform. I can't remember exactly the story. I have to send you the article where like the uniforms were like worn for like a couple games and they've never been
Mhm.
seen since.
Weird.
There's like this
That's
like aura
crazy.
behind them. I gotta figure out which ones they are,
Okay.
but those things have to
I
like
love
come
it.
back,
I
right?
know. Yep. Let's make it happen. That's what this is all about, is telling those stories of those universities.
And tell me about the Bearcat gear that you guys have
Yeah,
done.
so we've got several pairs of shorts that we've released, but the ones that are coming out this week are just a practice jersey, and then we've got quarter zips. So the quarter zips are in. So we've got a quarter zip. They look kind of like the warm up uniform, so you'll recognize it because they're patterned off the warm up uniform from those years. So
That's dope.
it's pretty fun, and we circle back to the stories. So well,
I love it.
Hey, I'm gonna get you out of here. I appreciate your time tonight, and hopefully you'll come back on. Maybe we can talk like go through a game. We love doing like a game recap. So it could be fun to just talk a single game and break down a game, because you could give us that perspective from the sideline, or even one you got in would be great.
Anytime you want, man. I love telling stories and just chopping it up, man, with good people. So
All right.
absolutely.
All right. Appreciate it, Alex.
All right, good deal, man. Thank you very much for having me on.
All right.
All right, go Bearcats.